the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs. We'll be monitoring that all week long and tweeting our little hearts at Luke and I on our WNST Twitter all week long. Luke will be on the backfields for a couple days this week as the Ravens head into the bye week, try to get rested, try to get better, try to actually win a game next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, the NFL never stops. It's still going this week. We're going all around the league all week long, talking to a bunch of people with a bunch of teams because, let's be honest, we're not playing, and it's more fun to talk about them than it is to talk about the Ravens' 4-game losing streak. The Buffalo Bills lost on Sunday in Miami. I was kind of shocked by that because they had a lead for a large portion of the game. This guy covers all things Bills and Buffalo sports and Sabres and all sorts of good stuff. He is Stu Boyer, sportscaster for WGRZ in Buffalo. That makes him a Buffalonian, and I miss the Anchor Bar and Beef on Weck and all the good things that I get up in Buffalo. Stu, I almost came through Buffalo. I had a flight up to Buffalo to go over to Toronto for the wild card game, the Zach Britton-less wild card game with Buck Showalter about a month ago. But I didn't make it, and I tell you what, we beat the Bills in week 1, and people were laughing, saying, the Bills, they're going to stink. The Bills don't stink, right? And they really have made good things happen since the firing of Greg Roman, right?
Yes, for the most part they have, although the second half yesterday was disastrous. The second half Sunday was disastrous. And that was not an impressive performance. They got out physical on both sides of the ball. That doesn't really happen that often, but it did. And it was disturbing. The Bills were on a 4-game winning streak, had a chance to win an AFC East game, couldn't get the job done. Ajayi ran all over them. And, the way the game started with the guy running like that, it's a bad sign for later in the game because sooner or later either you stop him or he keeps running and all the good things that happen when people can run the ball like that start happening.
Well, we had our own problems here. We had 6 yards of running on Sunday. 6 on 12 carries. Ajayi, this has been going on for a couple of weeks now. Feels like Miami trying to live through Tannehill. They have found sort of new life in running the football down there.
Well, personally, I don't think you're going too far with Ryan Tannehill, but you give any quarterback a running game like that, and good things will happen. And Ajayi was just tremendous. It's 2 weeks in a row with over 200 yards rushing. I think only 4 people have done that in the history of the NFL. So it was an impressive performance. From a Buffalo standpoint, it was very disturbing to see that team get run over like that. He had a lot of explosive plays, too many over 20 yards. He had that big 51-yarder. When you can run the ball like that, look, I'm an old-fashioned guy, Nestor. You got to run and stop the run, and when you don't stop it, you pay a big, big price.
Well, and in the case of the Buffalo Bills in week 1 and where they were then versus now, all I remember talking about was all of these defensive players that Rex had drafted and the kid that can't stay out of trouble getting onto the field, right? And what we saw in week 1 was a bunch of backups basically going out there and really believing they're going to be 16-game starters for the most part. How has that played out? I mean, certainly, weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, the Bills kind of came to life, right?
Yes. Well, they've got a lot of what I call value signings, Zach Brown, Lorenzo Alexander, and those guys have played great. Alexander's leading the league in sacks. At least he was. I think he still is. I'm not 100% certain about that. And Zach Brown has played really well, too. He was leading the league in tackles. But when you're missing some of the guys you got to have, Marcel Darius, they really could have used him yesterday. Maybe he could have stopped the run a little bit. But, he misses a mandatory drug test, claims he's going to go to rehab, doesn't go to rehab, comes back, has a hamstring injury. So he's basically he's missed all 7 games.
Try to make me go to rehab. I said no, right? Just like the song. But for Rex up there, week 2, they're losing. The Pagulas are in the locker room, which, tell me about that. To me, there's not much over the line or anything good that can happen when owners are in talking to players and talking to coaches in the locker room in the middle of the season.
That whole thing seemed quite out of character. We never really figured out exactly what happened. Apparently, the Pagulas do talk to players more often than is let on. But I think the mood here after getting blasted by the Jets that way at home in prime time, let's face it, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a great guy. He's a good NFL quarterback, but he's not in the class with Tom Brady or any of the other elites. And he shredded what they thought was their elite defense. And I mean shredded them. So the reaction here was outrage, disappointment, and it's like people wanted accountability. And, they wanted, I think there are times here when people want the Pagulas to come out and do what the Arizona owner said after the Cardinals lost to the Patriots in the season opener, where he just ripped things. He ripped them to shreds, and I just don't think the Pagulas are wired that way. So that was a very, very disappointing time, and the reaction to it was the whole Greg Roman firing and a 4-game winning streak that came crashing to an end Sunday in Miami.
Stu Boyer is up in Buffalo, no doubt, eating good stuff. I like to eat in Buffalo. There's great culture there. You know what I'm saying? He's a sportscaster for WGRZ in Buffalo. And the Bills, of course, with maybe the toughest schedule in the league the next 2 weeks. If you start to add up a home game against the Patriots, who feel sort of invincible, and I know, Rex certainly gets his burr up anytime Belichick and Brady come to town. And then they have to make the big trip out to Seattle before the bye as well. And one thing we know about Seattle, they can't score, but they do like to stop you from scoring. I thought they were going to play all night there. I thought penalty kicks were going to solve Sunday night before it was all over with.
Well, if penalty kicks had decided that game, maybe the ratings would have been better than what we're seeing throughout the NFL. How about that? The Bills have a challenging schedule, Nestor. It's they whacked the Patriots around pretty good when they played them in New England, and everybody here was real excited. But now the real test comes because the Patriots come here. It's an AFC East game that they. Losing yesterday really hurt them. Losing Sunday was really bad because it was it's an AFC East division game that you should have won. I mean, if you want to enhance your position in the standings, now the Patriots come here. This time they have Tom Brady and they have Rob Gronkowski. That's been a poison pill for the Bills forever. The second Tom Brady stepped on the field in the NFL, he's kind of owned the Bills, and Gronk hasn't been much different. And, of course, people from here, he's from here, so that's a little extra salt in the wound. And then as far as going to Seattle, it doesn't look quite as daunting as it once did, since Seattle, as you say, can't score. But nonetheless, you're going across the country. It's a primetime game, and we know what happened to the Bills the last primetime game they were on. So you are right. It's a very difficult schedule, and they need to win, I would say, 1 out of 2, preferably the New England game, but at this point, you'd have to consider him a long shot to win that game.
Stu, my pal Tom is a huge Bills fan. He's a Buffalonian like yourself. And I ran into him at our charity event at Maritime Magic for Living Classrooms. It was on the 23rd of September. The Bills were 0-2. They had gotten blasted, as you pointed out, by Ryan Fitzpatrick, who we saw a little of on Sunday as well here in Baltimore. And, the sentiment was, Rex isn't going to make it. Rex isn't going to make it. This thing's not going well, and Roman's out. It really is amazing. 4 wins in a row. Right now, we got Harbaugh off of 4 losses in a row, and the purple sky is falling here in Baltimore, as I'm sure you can well imagine. How has Rex been received? Because it's all bluster on the front end. I was up in New York, and I talked to Rich Cimini and some other people on the back end of the Jets' win over the Ravens over the weekend. I mean, it feels like Rex was made for the Jets, made for a place like Buffalo, but at some point there has to be results. At some point, he has to win playoff games in Buffalo, something nobody's done in a long, long time.
Well, first, before he can win a playoff game, he's got to get them there, and that's going to be a challenge. And when the NFL to me is all about, if you look at your schedule, there are games you should win and games you should lose. And it's the games that you can win that you're not sure about or that you should win if you lose them. Then you get yourself in real trouble. So that game in Miami was real trouble. Your question about Rex is like any other NFL town. When they're winning, everything's great. People will make all their points. They won't be upset. You start losing, and everybody turns on you. And one of the things that has happened here in Buffalo over the years is there just hasn't been enough winning, and there's been no continuity. That may save him a little bit. He's tailor-made for the media because he's a great quote. In the sense that his sound is awesome, the media likes him. And I'm not saying we don't like him. I just think the jury's still out. I think he's going to survive this season and probably beyond. I think you have to factor in a bunch of injuries. Like you look at Tyrod Taylor, who's played pretty well, but he's without his top 2 or 3 wide receivers. And then LaShawn McCoy goes down. You take those kind of weapons away from just about anybody except maybe Brady, Rodgers, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of the other elites, you're going to have you're going to have big time effects from that. So for people here to judge Rex and Tyrod, they'll get that break of, they had a lot of injuries. The suspensions, I think people are wearing real thin in terms of patience with certain individuals. Like, I don't think anybody here is really thrilled with Marcel Darius. Okay, he got injured, but I don't think they were too happy with the way his whole thing played out. Yeah, they got some bad breaks. Shaq Lawson got hurt. Reggie Ragland got hurt. Shaq is back, but he's not going to start over Lorenzo Alexander, at least not yet. So they've had some bad breaks, and that will allow people to survive, if not necessarily thrive. But if they keep winning, everything will be fine. It's like anything else.
Stu
But I do
Boyer.
think at some point they got to win.
Right on. Covering all things Buffalo sports up there. You can follow him out on Twitter as well. It's Stu Boyer. That's Boyar. He's also out at WGRZ.com on the internet as well. Any thoughts at all for Tyrod at this point and what the future holds there for him being the franchise quarterback? I mean, they made a commitment to him. It was a little bit of a tepid commitment. It wasn't the same kind of commitment that other organizations have made. They could walk away from him, but no reason to right now. He looks like, a guy who can win football games at this level.
Well, it's a problem, I think, because he's without Sammy Watkins, he's without Robert Woods, and then you take out McCoy. So you're taking away a lot of his weapons. He keeps a lot of plays alive with his legs, but you got to see him with all his weapons to fairly judge him, I think. I don't, I think a lot of people are really on the fence. And although I did tweet once on Sunday that here's the opportunity for Tyrod to put the team on his back and win the game late on the road, they couldn't get it done. Was it entirely his fault? No, it's never entirely the quarterback's fault. Nor do they always get all the credit, nor should they. But if you're going to judge this guy and you're the Bills' brain trust, how do you judge him without a Sammy Watkins? I mean, let's face it, the Bills' wide receiving core is, quote-unquote, awe-inspiring. No, they're not, especially without Sammy Watkins. So how do you judge him, really? How do you judge him fairly? Could he have done X, Y, and Z? Sure, he could have, but he doesn't have his top weapons around him. So I think a lot of people are like, yeah, he didn't get the job done, but look who wasn't on the field. So I think people are really, really, I hate to say it, on the fence. They're straddling. They want this guy to succeed. He seems like a likable guy. He's done some really great things. He's an exciting player to watch, but the end result hasn't been there. And fair or not, you got to get the results. But at the same time, you have to see what he can do with all his guys around him. And I think the jury is still very much out on that.
Buffalo Bills are 4-3 and taking on the New England Patriots this week in Buffalo. They then travel to Seattle before the bye. Certainly a part of this mix in the AFC playoff picture, and the Ravens can only hope to get back in the playoff picture with a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers after bye. Stu, great to hang out with you, man. Bye week, we're trying to go around the country and get a little vibe on everything else, and beyond that, 4-game losing streaks. I'm tired of bitching about Joe Flacco at this point, man. It's the middle of the season. I need a little downtime. A little World Series action. I know you're a big baseball fan. This is delicious, right? Cubs and the Indians, right?
Well, I'm a huge, and I mean huge, lifelong Cleveland Indians fan. So I am absolutely ecstatic, extremely nervous, and of course, just the Indians' luck to get to the World Series. They play the team everybody loves to love. So
I'm rooting for the Tribe, bro. I'm not a Cubby guy. I'm rooting against the Cubbies. So I got my Chief Wahoo going here. My Pedro Serrano. I got Joe Boo. I got everything happening here trying to help the Indians.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I tell you what, it's been a fun ride. This Indians team, to me, is much more fun than those teams of the 90s.
Those guys were jerks. I was in those locker rooms. They were just a group of bad guys, the Indians of 96 and 97.
Yeah, they were kind of like nasty, but these guys, they just find a way to get it done, and they seem really likable. I don't know of any of them personally, but from a distance, they seem very likable. They work hard. They never give up. They're a fun team to watch. Nerve-wracking. Baseball's very nerve-wracking, and I'm still wondering why a great manager like Buck Showalter didn't use Zach Britton. But I know that's ancient.
I didn't even ask you about that, but you had to bring that up. I mean, I've asked everyone, and I haven't found anyone that understands it other than Buck, right?
I sat there thinking to myself, I know this guy's a great manager. He's a great career-long baseball guy. And I'm like, he must have his reasons. And I listened to all the post-game comments, and I'm like,
none of them made any sense.
no, it's like a brain cramp. It's like it was like, I think some people get locked in certain things, only certain ways you can use certain people, and no flexibility. I don't know. You know what? I got a soft spot for the Orioles. I grew up in Rochester when the Red Wings were the Orioles farm team. So I kind of have a soft spot for them. But
so you remember before the Orioles were wrecked by Peter Angelos, huh?
Yes, I do. They had some great teams. And, I'm an American League guy. I like the Jays. I like the Orioles. But my true love is the Indians, and I've been waiting since 1962 to hopefully feel the joy of a World Series championship.
Well, I want you to feel that joy. I want to see more disappointed Cubs fans and Eddie Vedder and all that good stuff. Great having you on, man. A nice visit. We'll check you out on Twitter, and we'll check you out at WGRZ up there in Buffalo. Good luck to you, man.
Thank you, Nestor. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, pleasure.
I'll talk to you again soon.
No worries. Follow Stu Boyer, that's Boyar, out in Buffalo on Twitter as well. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally each and every morning at 7 a.m. And last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is powered up by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Still waiting on an Oriole pitching coach, amongst other things, on the Tech Service. And clearly the Ravens injury report will be excruciating over the next 2 weeks as we get ready for this Pittsburgh game and then the Cleveland game, both here. Don't forget, on the 12th of November, the man who saved my wife's life, Niels, is coming to town from Germany. We're throwing a big party for him at Roost Chris Pier 5. We'd love to invite you, yours, your family. You want to come out, celebrate a miracle, come on out with us. It's Saturday, November the 12th. You're going to send me an email. Nasty at WNST.net finds me Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as on our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.